Four Midwest Guys presents Mandalorian Review.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Mandalorian Review, Chapter 1 review. Apparently they're going to go by chapters in this series, so the first episode is here. Our first Star Wars television series is here, Brian. I'm super excited. It was a good episode. I thought it was a good pilot episode especially. What'd you think, man?
Yeah, I mean, introducing us into the character, give us a little bit of backstory, kind of give us
setting up the season.
Set the world a little bit. It made it kind of seem like it was a Western when it first opened. I wish it was a little longer. It was only like 36 minutes or something, 40 minutes or so.
Yeah.
I wish it was a little longer.
Me too.
But, we got what we got. It's still more than we had.
Isn't it classic Filoni style, though, to always leave us wanting more, though?
Yeah, true.
From his cartoons on, it's always been this way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it was only 36 minutes, so hopefully the next chapters, we'll get some longer chapters, 45 hour. I don't mind the 36 here and there, but there's only 8 of them, so I kind of want them to be longer.
But if you remember, the Rebels was the same way, though.
Yeah, I was like, damn, I wish this was longer.
They were all short,
yeah.
So I wonder if he's going to do the same thing
with these.
I hope not.
I hope not either. I would prefer much longer episodes. But love the style, love the feel of this entire podcast. Definitely had that whole cowboy thing, but we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end, I guess. So let's break it down. How we love to do our breakdowns. It's a 36-minute show that will probably turn into a 2-hour podcast. So right off the opening scene of him walking on the, Hoth-like world almost, very cold planet, and right off the bat he walks in and the door opens. We've seen this in the trailer, and there's almost like a funky kind of sort of a good, the bad, and the ugly theme that kind of plays in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like like a Star Wars Cantina version of the good, the bad, and the ugly. I thought. So it's kind of like announcing his presence, like. Except it's something more funky that I can't quite match. But I thought that was kind of cool, kind of a little bit of a throwback there. We find out right off the bat, though, that this galaxy that we're in at this period in time is different. You've got a bully basically threatening to cut off this guy's glands and then sell them because they can make money off of it. So there's like poachers kind of going on in this new rough post-Empire world, that there's no real currency is what we're kind of finding out,
right?
And that they're bartering in other goods,
right,
to make their to make their living, so to speak,
right. And they still have credits,
right? But they're Imperial credits.
But what are credits good for now?
When the Empire has fallen, right? So we'll see some more of that as we go. I thought the fight scene was pretty cool. I liked it. It was just a nice bar fight in Star Wars.
Yeah, it was a bar fight.
Yeah,
it was nice. It was it's another episode we get with no lightsabers.
Yeah.
So, but it was still
cool. It was still cool.
They had blasters.
Yeah,
so it was all right.
And the door did cut the guy in half.
Yeah,
and they didn't show it. They did the Clone Wars thing with it, or the Rebels thing, where they're dead from a certain angle, but you don't actually see the actual separation.
Yeah. So in this one, it gets to a certain point and it slows down, and then it pans away, and then you hear it go. And you see them have the body fall. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that reminded me totally of Rebels, and especially the Seventh Sister when she gets cut in half, and she just kind of does a, spoiler alert, by the way, but
yeah, which this is all a spoiler review.
Yeah. If you haven't seen Chapter 1 yet, then you need to turn this off right now. By the way, everything we're going to talk about is spoiler heavy. Obviously,
pretty much up to this point, everything was on the trailer though. So
for the most part, it seemed like actually the trailer was a lot out this episode. This first episode, I don't see too many scenes that we haven't,
Yeah, there was a lot of
seen yet.
Yeah, there was. Well, I can think of a bunch.
Minor, but they're like small scenes. Like the bigger scenes were all out of this episode.
Yeah.
So which that makes me excited because we don't know what's coming, so to speak. So he ends up getting the same guy that they were trying to cut off his glands as his bounty, which I thought was funny. He just puts it down. He ends up, I can take you cold, I can take you warm.
He's like, what is that for me? He's like, they have little pucks, and
that's cool,
and like holographic pucks, and they're called bounty pucks.
Yeah.
And he goes, is that a bounty puck? And he puts it on the table, and it's a hologram. It pops up his picture with, I guess, the wording above it that says, his bounty or whatever, or wanted. And he says, oh, well,
I'll get you more credits.
I'll get you more credits.
Yeah.
And then that's when he says, I can take you warm. Right. And then he moves his hand to his gun and says, or I can take you cold. And then you see, like, the next scene is them walking out in the cold with him in his cuffs.
Binders, yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I really enjoyed that whole scene. The idea that they have these pucks, too, for bounty is it's like a wanted poster. It's a Star Wars version of a wanted poster, which I think is a pretty damn cool idea. Yeah. And then we get to him hailing the taxi, and it's a Garidian species. This is the same. The last time we saw this species is when we were Docking Bay 94, all the way back at the original Star Wars. You had he was more black looking, and he had like a black cloak over him, and he was their spy, and he was chasing, kind of following Kenobi and Skywalker around, Luke Skywalker. So it's nice to see that they're putting that back in. We're seeing some original aliens and stuff that we didn't have before is now in this episode. Mm-hmm. A lot of that stuff that's been missing from the sequel trilogy, this episode has that classic trilogy feel all the way through it, because we're seeing familiar alien species for once. It's all new, which I thought was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. The only thing that got me about this scene that I didn't really care for was that he used the little stupid flute that barely made any noise to call the taxi.
It was like doo-doo-doo.
Right.
It pulls up like, what?
And then he doesn't.
How in the hell do you hear that through the wind?
Right.
Ain't no way.
Yeah. It was okay. It's an interesting concept that I think if they made it a little louder and more believable. I don't know. That was my only problem with the scene, though.
Right.
But, and we do find out in this scene, though, that a brand new taxi comes up with a droid as a driver, and Mando does not want it. The Mandalorian does not like droids.
Yeah, it's an R2 unit.
It's an R2 unit, and he's no droids. Flips him a coin and gets an actual driver to pull up. Which,
right.
So we're starting to find out a little bit about him. Okay, he doesn't like droids. Is it just R2 units? We don't know. We'll find out more as we go. Then the taxi driver that comes up is Brian Edmund Poulsen, I think is his name. I recognize him from Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, he was the geologist. He's the tall, awkward guy with glasses, balding.
Speaks a very monotone voice. So there's a little nugget. It's cool to see him in the Star Wars movie. And the whole time that he's driving his taxi, he's got his binoculars on, and he's looking for some sort of a beast, which I couldn't bring up the subtitles when we were watching it. They were having technical difficulties with Disney Plus today, but it was Zorashnian or I don't know. Raranash, or something like that. Ravenesh. Maybe that's what it was.
I think it was Ravenesh.
Anyway, it turns out to be like this giant half walrus, half
beast from Tremors.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like to me. It was like half Tremors, but like the face of a walrus.
Yeah, with big tusks, giant tusks. That's a pretty good comparison. And I like how he's holding on to their landing gear. And this is where we get to see the Mandalorian use that rifle that we saw all the way back in the holiday special. Is actually in the show. We see that he uses it as a stun gun to take off the creature. Yeah. Which was really cool. So I enjoyed this whole opening sequence. Pretty cool stuff, kind of stuff going on. It gives you that whole. It's classic Star Wars. You've got the Western feel, and then they're adding the monsters and the different aliens and the different species all together, which I really liked. Then we get into the Mando ship. What was it? The
Raven Crest.
The Raven Crest is what he ended up calling it. Apparently, that's just the class of the ship. It's not. It may not be the ship's name, but it is the class of ship. It is actually Clone Wars era, as his bounty points out to him that it's pre-Empire. And it is. Yeah. Okay, I feel a sneeze coming on. Sorry. hopefully he'll go away. But he tries. I like how he tries to use what he calls the vac tube.
Yeah,
he
the
has to
bathroom.
relieve himself. And the man doesn't fall for it. He actually ends up pushing him into a carbonite freeze on his own planet.
Yeah, because
ship.
He walks out from behind him and goes down the ladder, and instead of using the bathroom, he's just kind of exploring the ship.
Yeah.
And looking around and stuff. First, he hits the buttons and it opens up the armory, and he's like, "Ooh!" Hit the buttons again, and closes it real fast.
Yep.
And he's like, "Oh, I'm still going to the bathroom down here. I'm still good."
I'm vaulting.
Yeah, and then he walks over and he sees 3 of the prior bounties, and he goes, "I was hoping to get home," and he says, "for Life Day."
Yeah, which is another throwback to the holiday special.
Yeah, he goes, "I was hoping to get back for the Life Day," and then and he says, "But I guess that's not going to happen."
Yeah, the man
was standing right behind him. He goes, "Nope." Grabs him and throws him into the carbonite, and that's the image that we see in one of the trailers. We were all trying to figure out
who he was.
Speculation, like, who is it? Some people were saying he was
Hondo
or some other. And it's like, nope,
it's him.
It was him.
Yep. And by the way, he was a flattling mithril.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah, whatever.
He briefly said it when he was trying to say he had to go to the bathroom.
Right. So, then we get back. We go to another planet, and it's we meet Grief Karga for the first time. That's Apollo Creed. The guy who plays Apollo Creed, his character. And we find out here comes the economy again. He tries to pay him in Imperial credits, which the Mando automatically goes, "In case you haven't noticed, the Empire's gone. That's not going to be enough."
And then he says, "But they still spend."
Yeah.
And he's like, "That's all right. I don't want him.
The Empire's gone. In case you haven't noticed.
I don't want him."
Right. And then so he ends up giving him calamari flung, whatever that is. Some sort of
flan
excrement from calamaris, which again,
I don't think it's. I think it's.
Or do you think it's some sort of delicacy or something?
No, I think it's actually their currency. Because the calamari are that's the ones for the.
That's such your Admiral Akbar.
Yeah, so maybe it's because it's underwater.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's kind of it was rubber. It's like squishy. So like, if you listen to it, like when we were listening to it on the TV,
yeah,
you didn't really hear it as much. When I listened on my iPad,
yeah,
you can actually hear that when he grabs them, they squish.
Okay.
So it's almost like their currency would be suited for underwater, so it wouldn't deteriorate.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So instead of being like an actual something off of calamari, it's their version of currency.
Correct.
And which still trades well because their economy's probably held up by its own.
Yeah.
So it's like a reserve currency.
Yeah, and it's
interesting.
And it's not made of metal, so it doesn't deteriorate underwater.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Okay, I'll buy that. In fact, I'll go with that. I like that explanation a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but again, it shows you that this economy, this post Return of the Jedi world, this post Empire world,
5 years.
5 years after is, especially in the Outer Rim territories, there's no real system. There's no economic system set in place yet. There's no new Republic credits. Republic credits are no good out here. Imperial credits are no longer good out here. So you get the idea that the world has changed, and the New World Order has not yet caught up to the Outer Rim yet.
Well, it's funny because when we think about stuff, and as we watched episodes 4, 5, and 6, and we're like, oh, the rebels beat them.
Yeah.
Yes, that's awesome. But then you don't even think about the ramifications of what happens when you take down the government. How do you have new currency and everything else? Kind of like how, when America was formed.
Right. It took us forever to get.
How do you have the new? What's the new currency? Are you still using the British money? Are you still what are you using?
You got to create your own.
Yeah.
And you got to establish yourself. And
so that's where we're at right now. Is the slow deterioration of the imperial credit.
Yep.
And like the use of more stable stuff like the yen or the calamari.
The calamari flung, which is a reserve currency, obviously is what they're trying to trade in. So other valuables are trying to be used. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Let's see, calamari flung, and Oh, and then the next scene I like, which I like, I saw it in the trailer too, is them offloading the carbonite, the bounties.
And they scanned them.
They scanned
Yeah,
them.
it was kind of it was different to see it go in reverse.
Yeah, in reverse, yeah, because I'm used to, it reminded me of, Han being loaded into Slave 1 and Empire Strikes Back. So, nice little nod.
Well, it's pretty funny if you noticed, it was two people. One was up in the ship, and they pushed it out. And then there was another guy on the bottom, and he used his whole body weight to push it, and it watched it coast over into the other ones. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, it kind of glides.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was all really cool stuff. Then, obviously he's looking for more money. He gives them all these bounties. He's like, well, how much is that? 5,000. He's like, well, that won't cover fuel. That shows you.
Yeah, because he was waiting for his next job or what. Well, and he was like, so I have a smuggler, I have a trader, I have a this, and I have a that, and he's like, yes, and he goes, okay, I'll take him. He's like, no, I can't do that because I'm in charge of the guild, and there's more people than just you in this guild
that need them.
Yeah. And he goes, well, what's the most expensive one you got? Yeah. And he said 5,000. He's like,
that won't cover fuel.
Yeah, won't even cover fuel nowadays.
Yeah. So he brings up the special bounty, is what we're calling it.
Yep.
He doesn't have it. There's no puck like there are for the other ones. It's only a little chip.
Well, he said it was face to face,
and he had to have the chip in order to do the meeting.
Yep. Like a business card.
Business card, yeah, almost. So I liked he walked through the town, saw a couple cool things as he's walking through the town. I think this scene was after he meets with the Max character, but we do see the lizard monkeys. The Salacious B. Crumb character, one of them being roasted over an open fire, another one in a cage. Just in the whole atmosphere, the whole place, there's junk, little pieces of junk and dirt. The whole used universe is there.
You know what it reminded me of is like Aladdin.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Like Agrabah, kind of like in the slums of Agrabah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It has that used universe. Yes, this is a galaxy a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but it said the futuristic, like the stuff in Naboo that we saw in the prequels. No, this is all dirty. This is all grungy, like the Falcon herself, in the original trilogy. So that OT feel is definitely there, which I loved. So we get to the place of the meeting, and he knocks on the door, and sure enough, we get the same droid in Jabba's palace. That comes out, the little ball with the eye and everything.
Right.
Which, a great little another throwback to Return of the Jedi, I thought. And establishes the era that we're in, because that happened in Return of the Jedi, and you get the same thing here. There's a gonk droid when he walks in. That's another little great nugget going on. So really cool stuff. And then he enters the main room, and there's stormtroopers. 4 stormtroopers there, but they're not the bright white and shiny stormtroopers that we've seen in the past.
Right. It reminded me more of a like a tactical team, more so than guards. Just because of the way because they weren't pristine, like you said, they weren't bright white. They looked like they had been through some battles or been through some like adventures, if you will.
Yeah.
And the way they were standing wasn't like they were standing at attention around this guy. It was more so like they were like we'll say Navy SEALs or something. Where they were kind of just standing around, waiting for this guy to show up, and then when we get the scene where they're kind of talking, and then that doctor comes in,
right?
And he's like
Dr. Pershing,
kind of scared the Mandalorian, and he pulls his gun, and they pulled their guns, and everybody's just like,
it's a standoff.
Yeah, and that was one of my favorite lines. He goes, put your guns down. He goes, you put yours down. He goes, we outnumber you 4-1. He goes, I like those odds.
Yeah, that's a very cool line.
It's like, oh yeah.
See, I took a different meaning when I saw the stormtroopers. I said, the stormtroopers have always had the nice stuff. The Imperial was always the new, the nice, the everything was polished, right? Here, those resources are no longer available. These nice, bright, white, shiny stormtroopers are don't have the resources to clean their armor anymore. That they just have to keep wearing it over and over again because that's all that's left. The Empire has gone from the top of the hill down to the bottom, so they're
right.
That's how I looked at it, but I like your point though too on them. So
and I only say that because I just finished watching Jack Ryan season 2.
Yeah, that was a good season too. I like that. Let's see. Oh, and then the leader, the guy with the crazy voice, he had I like how he had the Imperial had the Imperial symbol around his chest. So he's some sort of, let's say, upper class Imperial of some kind, whether he was in the Imperial Senate.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Like he was a governor.
I was going to say he was like a governor or a chancellor or something. Because you can tell he's of upper echelon status.
Yeah.
Just by the way he carries himself.
Right.
And the fact that he wants this asset, we'll later find out who the asset is or what the asset is.
Right.
But it's like when you think about it, and you're like, ooh.
Right.
What does this fallen empire want with this? It's like,
The fact that he's revealing himself even to the public, in a world where we see, stormtroopers' heads on spikes and stuff like that, that we've seen in the trailer. So, it's interesting, and it's gonna be interesting how that plays out. We'll talk about that a little bit more later.
Yep.
He gets offered a bar of Beskar, which is what their Mandalorian armor is made of.
Yeah,
traditionally.
I think it's the metal from Mandalore.
Yeah. And so he gets this bar of Beskar, and even I think the Mandalorian goes, "Is that Beskar?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I've got a whole
container
case of it for you out there. This is just like a down payment kind of thing. And but yeah, it was so that was cool to see that, and then but it had the Imperial emblem on it. So that'll be
So what it kind of reminded me of is when like back in the day when miners would mine the gold, and they would make the bars of gold, and then they put their logo on the corner of the gold to say it was theirs.
Right.
That's kind of what it reminds me of. Like the Empire somehow got a hold of this stuff that used to be the Mandalorians.
Yep.
The Mandalores. Used to be theirs. They melded it down to make bricks.
Yep.
And then stamped it.
Right. But that was there for it. Yeah. Yep. I agree with you 100%. So it's interesting, I got a feeling this is going to help tell the story, too, of the Mandalorian. Mandalorians, not just this particular Mandalorian, but Mandalorians in general. We'll get a little bit feel of a lot of their culture and what all that means. Again, Dr. Pershing comes out. He seems like he's very jumpy, and he wants the asset alive, like you said, whereas the Imperial, he's like, well, I could take him dead or alive.
Well, yeah, because he says, we want him alive. But I know that bounty hunting can be a tricky thing, so if he comes back dead, I'll just pay you less.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the doctor's like, no, it's alive. We want him alive.
Agreement. Yeah.
Yes, alive is preferable.
Bounty hunting can be a difficult profession. Yeah, you get that whole line. And all he gets though to tracker, he gets like a tracker that's 50 years old, and they can only give him 4 digits out of the tracker, so he has to try to figure out the rest on his own.
Yeah, they give him the destination of where he was last seen.
Yep.
They tell him he's 50 years old.
Yep.
And they give him an actual tracker probe.
Yep. Like a radio tracker almost.
Yeah, it's basically just like a beacon.
Yeah.
That just beeps. Like, it's like a metal detector. The closer you get to the metal, the closer faster it beeps.
Right. And that's all he's got. So in there, we end that scene, and then we go to the next scene, which I really enjoy. This next scene, I was not expecting this, but this whole Mando Forge scene is what I call it. He walks into down in the basement of one of these buildings is this Mando Forge, or a place of like a Mando refuge. Even there's Mandalorians in armor with their gun. There was one in the hallway that had the short sawn off blaster like Boba Fett had.
Yeah.
There was other Mandalorians, and he had Mando kids running through the hallway, all with their helmets on, though, which you pointed out to me earlier, and I agree. So that shows you they do not take their helmets off, and that's part of their thing, so to speak. He sits down to the forge with the female, and before we get into the forge, you see on the wall, you see the what we were previously calling the Mandalorian, or the Boba Fett symbol, because we've always seen it on Boba Fett's armor,
right?
Which is that symbol which Brian has on his hat right there. But it turns out that it is a what was it?
The Mythosaur.
The Mythosaur is what it's called. It's the skull of the Mythosaur, which apparently is the symbol for the Mandalorian people. I guess that's kind of like their.
That's what it turned into. So it started out with being a large dragon-like beast that inhabited Mandalore first, And when the Mandalorians,
the first Mandalore,
it was called. The first guy was called Mandalore the First. Him and his people, when they inhabited the planet, went around and killed them all off to extinction, and then used the skull as their logo, that's what this is. It's a skull, and it's actually the two tusks that came off the front of the dragon, and then the dragon's head in the center. Yeah. We were like wondering what it was, and now we know what it is.
Yeah, and we'll get into how we found out about it later. But that same symbol though is before he goes down into the forge. There it is, and it looks like it's made out of Beskar, pure Beskar. And it's shiny and it's bright, and that's that symbol. And they show that as he walks in. He sits down. Basically, he gives her the block of Beskar that he got. And she goes, well, this could be made into a, I think she called it a pauldron, which is just simply just a piece of shoulder armor.
Shoulder armor.
Ancient, like medieval, that's what they called it. Looked that up. But this female Mandalorian, she has like this golden helmet on, and she has like little spikes on the top of her. I don't know if she's royalty, maybe, because it almost looks like a crown in her mask, almost like she has the spokes of a crown or something. I don't know. Or maybe that's what the forgers look like.
I was gonna say it almost like she has had, since she is a forger.
Yeah.
That hers is a little more detailed than say like a bounty hunter or just a regular, regular Mandalorian person would have. Because she takes the time in her, she's like, well, kind of like somebody showing off their skill trade,
Right.
Like you have you have a home builder, and he goes and builds your house. It looks like everybody else's house, but he goes and builds his house, and all of a sudden it's got all these intricate details. They're like, oh, I see. You're just showing off what you know.
Well, she's showing off her craft, and
that's what I got. That's what I got from it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it has something to do with their culture, but her armor, like I said, her helmet anyway was gold, and it had like the little intricate pieces on the top of it.
So was her breastplate.
So I don't know. We'll find out if that's part of the culture, if that's just a one-off thing, like an artist thing, maybe. Because I'm getting the feeling that art is connected with the Mandalorians, because we learned a little bit about that in Rebels. Right. I think that might be true in this series as well. So she makes him his piece of armor for his shoulder. And the other thing she mentions, which is kind of cool, is she said there's a lot left over that can be used for
the foundlings.
The foundlings, which to me sound like they're orphans, maybe.
Well, yeah,
or children.
Well, yeah, and so after after talking about it, what it sounds like is, like with the young Jedis.
Yeah, the Padawans.
Padawans.
Yeah, and younglings.
Younglings.
Yeah.
I think the foundlings are after, because we see in the trailers and then briefly in the same actually scene.
Yeah.
We see the his flashback.
Every time she pounds the hammer, he sees another flashback.
Another flashback of like, it basically looks like an attack that he got with the Clone Wars
era. Yeah.
And
which would explain why he doesn't like droids.
Yeah, which is why he doesn't like droids.
Yeah.
But that's maybe because they were found and they were younglings, so they just called them foundlings.
Yeah. So my guess is there's enough of this, whatever's left of the Beskar, she actually takes a little bit of that and starts putting that either in a helmet or some other piece of armor for the younger kids. And so as they get older and they earn more, they can get their own, buy more,
right,
Beskar or whatever, and then they can keep adding to the armor like he is. He's getting a piece at a time,
Right.
So it seems to be very significant to their culture and how all that works. And it's very personal, even to them.
Right.
Their armor is. So, and that comes out. The other thing she brings up is she said, "Has your signet had been revealed?" Which is nothing more than a seal, and he said, "Not yet."
So, your signet. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what his signet is. Is it going to be the skull, or is it maybe more personal to his family, whoever his family was, or
whoever the crest was
for? Right. So hopefully we'll get to see that as we go forward. The other thing. So we flash forward to the next scene. This is him landing on yet another planet. They don't tell us what planet it is. They're To me, it's kind of like a desertous planet, but it's a mountainous desert planet. Now, my first thought was it could be the jungle and wastelands of Tatooine that we see Luke get attacked by the Tusken Raiders, aka Sand People, back in Star Wars Episode 1, when, because R2 takes off in there too, and it's much too rocky. I'm not going that way. That could be the jungle and wastelands. It's possible anyway. However, the other big clue that would take it away from the Tatooine idea is we see blurgs, which are like these kind of giant, like the front of them look like piranhas, and then they have tails and two legs that they walk on, and two little Tyrannosaurus-looking arms.
It was like a half fish, half dinosaur
kind of looking thing.
Yeah.
Now, we've seen the blurgs before. For those of you who have watched Rebels, it is in Rebels. It's on the planet Ryloth, and the one that we saw, we've seen the Rebels ride them. We saw Hera Syndulla's father, Cham, ride them as well. So it's very possible that this is planet Ryloth as well. It's possible. Anyway.
Like describing the planet, it kind of reminds me of like when you were younger, and there was a lot of mud, like at a build site, and it dries up, and it like crusts up enough that there's like little crevices in between, like the like little things of mud, and you're like, I could play with my G.I. Joes in that, and blah, blah, blah. That's exactly what this looked like. Yeah,
and granted, it's animated, but from what I remember of the planet Ryloth, it kind of fits. That's what Ryloth looks like.
Yeah.
So, and even Clone Wars, it's the same thing. So, because they go to Ryloth in Clone Wars as well. So, there's a lot of stuff going on here. He gets attacked by the blurgs, not just one, but a second one, and he gets saved by Nick Nolte. Finally shows up with his Ugnaught character, Queel. So instead of squeal like a pig, it's Queel the pig, aka Ugnaught. To me, this is a very interesting character, and the fact that they use Nick Nolte is even funnier, and it kind of has that kind of really element to me, because he's, to me, this is how and we have different views on Queel. My view is he feels like a guide, or almost like a knight squire in a way. What was your take, Brian?
Yeah, and I said he feels more like a like he's an older gentleman, like a grandpa type figure, and he's had enough, and it's his way or no way. He doesn't care what you think, because several times as he's talking, he said, "I have spoken," and I guess the end of the thing, it's like
conversation's
over. I have spoken, and it's just like.
Yeah,
and even the Mandalorian goes, okay, and he kind of just follows him because he's like, okay, like I've spoken, like, okay.
I wonder if he has any royalty in him, because royalty would do that almost. Now that I think about it a little bit,
maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
There's something about him, but yeah,
it's just weird. It was funny.
But anyway, he helps him out. He basically says you need to learn. I'm going to take the one blurg, the other blurg you're going to ride. I have spoken.
Yeah.
And it goes to a break-in scene, like trying to break a horse in. Same thing with the blurg. You got the Mandalorian keeps getting thrown off.
They're in this corral trying to learn how to ride it.
Yep. And this is where we learn Queel say, your ancestors rode the mythosaur.
Yeah, he goes, you're Mandalorian. Your ancestors did this.
Yeah.
Like, you know who you are?
Yep.
Like,
which is why we looked up online the mythosaur, and that's when we found out about the symbol.
Yeah, about the crest.
So it all makes sense. It's all kind of, it's nice writing, really, to throw that in there and introduce that to us. So, but yeah, he says your ancestors rode the mighty mythosaur. You can do this, and then he turns into the blurg whisperer.
Yeah,
and is able to tame the creature.
And he does. He's like, come on now.
Yeah.
Okay. And he gets on him like...
I was just waiting for him to do this.
I know.
How they do with the horse's eyes.
Like Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah. And then eventually they ride the blurgs. It's cool. He says you definitely need the blurgs to go across the terrain, and you find out why, because there's these huge cracks in this mud surface, and they're just jumping right over them as they're riding them. And he was right, which is cool to see. And then the Mando tries to give him money for his actions, because he takes him to the outpost. He's like, that's it. He's like, well, here you go. He's like, no, I'm not doing it.
Here, take this. You've earned it. And he's like, no, I just want the peace and quiet.
Yeah, he's like, these mercenaries cause nothing but trouble. They send you people out here, causing more trouble. Just, you get rid of them. Once you find the bounty, they'll disappear. And, only people come here looking for peace that will live here on this planet.
Yeah.
So I want the peace restored. That's his official response. I think there might be something more to the guy. But
it could be.
I could be overreading it, though, too, because I like to do that with Star Wars. So, and I like also how he said to him, he said, well, you're a Mandalorian. If the stories are true that I hear, it shouldn't be a problem. You'll defeat them, essentially. Which is cool, because we're adding to the mythos of the Mandalorian people.
Right, legends. So it's one of those, I wonder if, one of Queel's ancestors, or, it's like...
Meta-Mandalorian
told him about Boba Fett.
Ooh, yeah, that could be. So it's like a passed down story.
Yeah, so he already knows.
Yeah,
Boba Fett is, the Mandalorian is a badass man. Yep.
Yeah. So we get to the final part of the episode, and I just call it the outpost because that's essentially what it is. It's a couple buildings with a fence around it, a fort, and inside are just there's those Trandoshans in there. Look like to me the Bosk style S creatures, some other pirates of some kind, or smugglers, thieves, whatever you want to call it. And before the Mandalorian can make his move, IG-11, not 88, IG-11 shows up, and now I understand why they couldn't make him IG-88, and I'll explain here in a little bit, but I know why now.
Oh yeah.
So he just shows up and he's like, by the order of the Bounty Guild, I'm here to collect my,
please produce the
asset. And you get to see IG-11 in action, which is pretty badass, because I had the IG-88 figure, and it surpassed how he's, not only does he turn, but his legs turn, and he's just...
Everything turns, he's shoot everywhere,
Yeah, he's just going nuts. Then you hear the Mando keep going. He says it twice. He goes, droids. So again, his prejudice towards droids, but he's forced to join forces with IG-11. And they get this whole badass battle scene. And I don't. Did you like the final fight scene?
Yeah,
especially how he.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked it. I thought it was really good, and it showed them the two bounty hunters coming together against all the and they were outnumbered
at least 10-1 at least.
At least 10-1, if not more than that.
Yeah.
And then he's like, all right, we got this still. And then he goes and he stands out in front and has that oh shit moment when he brings the cannon.
Yeah.
And then they jump right back behind the thing and he starts shooting the cannon. He's like, all right, you go that way and distract them.
Yep. And then he takes his grappling hook. And,
yeah. It was pretty. It was good.
And takes the gun to everybody.
Yeah.
But the other part I liked about this was IG-11 the whole time. He's very, I think you called him literal, and I said
he takes everything very literally.
He's very exact protocol. I kept bringing up, well, I'm going to activate my self-destruct. I'm not supposed to be captured.
Yeah, and he's like,
got a little thermo detonator in his chest.
And he goes, no, what are you doing? No. and he's like, okay, and he puts it away.
Yeah.
And then it was a little bit later, and he goes, oh, now we're gonna lose. I'm definitely gonna do it now. And he's like, no, stop. It was pretty good.
It was a good comic relief with the action. Kind of broke it up a little bit. So they finally get inside. They bust up in the door with the blaster. Cut it. Comes down. Looks like a piece of bread falling.
They used the gun.
Yeah, they used the big gun. And he uses his tracker. There's a life sign. They open up this floating,
like a pod
container, and all you see at first are the ears from the back. And I'm like, I know those ears. I've seen those ears.
Yeah.
And they're pointy little green ears. And they turn around, and sure enough, inside is a baby Yoda species. Anyway, Yoda's species has never been defined yet in Star Wars canon. So I can't tell you what species it is, but it's essentially a 50-year-old version of Yoda, his species. It's a tiny little Yoda.
And like a baby.
A baby Yoda.
It was like a baby because it's still wrapped up in a blanket. Like it's almost like a bassinet.
Yeah, almost.
And it was one of those, it's a baby Yoda.
Yeah. And he goes, and even the Mandalorian goes, but it's been 50 years.
Yeah.
And then IG-11's like, no, well, all species age differently, which would make sense because Yoda was 900 years old when he died.
Yeah.
So so obviously if he lives that long, then maybe their maturing process is more drawn out as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a 50-year-old, whatever species Yoda is. I'm just going to call him we're calling him Yoda Jr.
Right.
for now. And that was Brian came up with that term. So we'll stick with Yoda Jr. So the question is obviously also IG-11 says that he's insistent. His orders were to kill this thing, kill the baby.
He pulls out his gun, and then Mandalorian's like, no,
we're gonna take him alive.
Taking him alive.
Yeah.
He's like, nope, I was sent here to kill him.
Yep. And then the next thing you see is him shooting him through the head, and he's gone.
Well, because they do a really nice thing with the panning, and they pan, and all you hear is the gunshot, and you're like, oh my god, they just killed the little baby Yoda.
Yeah.
And then you see IG-11 fall to the ground with bullet
holes in his head. Yeah. Which was great. That's Filoni at his best. That's how you show, somebody being shot in the head without, even though he's an android, or it still makes no difference.
Well, it's how you keep it PG-13.
Yeah, essentially. But it's so, and to me, I think he saved this baby Yoda because he was an orphan too, and he views this as an orphan. So this is his Achilles heel. Psychologically, obviously, you don't ever want to kill a baby, but I'm just saying, on top of it, I think that's why he stopped. But this brings up two questions: is this baby Yoda Jr., is he a clone of Yoda? Because you have Dr. Pershing with the Imperials who wants Yoda Jr. alive, number one. So is he some sort of a clone doctor, some sort of genetics doctor that took some Yoda DNA they had on file from the temple and created a clone? Or the only other option I can come up with in my head, other than him just being another random species that they found, is that you also had, going all the way back to the prequels, on the Jedi Council you had Yoda, and you also had Yaddle. Now, attachment is forbidden.
Let's get it on.
But is this their offspring somehow, some way? They never really said what happened to Yaddle, so we don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
And Yoda survived all the way till the end of Return of the Jedi. So if Yaddle was around, it's been 50 years. You go 50 years back from where they're now, which is 5 years past Jedi. That puts you around the whole Star Wars Empire Strikes Back time frame.
Farther back than that.
If you go back 50 years from, it might be pre-Star Wars.
I would say it would definitely be like Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, that'd be right. So
Revenge of the Sith is not a little bit sooner.
So maybe something would happen there, and this is what's left. This is what happened. So a lot of possibilities. Really big reveal, obviously, with the Yoda child. And it'll be interesting to see where this goes. This could have some implications.
That's my other question.
Is he force sensitive?
Is he force sensitive? But my other thing would be, this is 20 years before Force Awakens,
right?
Which puts him alive during the time of
if he survives all
Rey and Poe and everything else. It's like,
does he show up in Episode 9?
Does he show up in Episode 9? Is that why we waited so long to show him to us?
It could be. We could have a little Yoda versus the Emperor, a young Yoda, or a young Yoda Padawan to Rey.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be something?
That'd be weird.
So yeah, there's all kinds of possibilities. This opens up a whole can of worms as far as storylines go, and myth and canon, and So
he looks just like him.
Yeah, it's a tiny Yoda. What do you think, Brian, about them bringing in a baby Yoda?
I mean, it's a weird. I mean, obviously it's going to play out down the road, because that's the way Filoni does everything. Is everything ties in later down the if it's like a little thing from one episode, 3 episodes down the road, you're like, that's why it was there. So it's obviously going to play something into this series. If it's not just showing the Mandalorians, like you said, his Achilles heel, his one saving grace is the fact that he just can't stand.
There's a soft place in his heart for orphans.
So this shows you that he's not just a bounty hunter, and he does have more of a backstory behind him. He's not just a killer or whatever.
Yeah.
He actually does have feelings and stuff.
Yeah.
So I thought it was kind of. On one hand, I really liked the fact that they did that. On the other hand, they didn't need it. In my opinion, they didn't need it in this episode. They didn't need to have this reveal of a Baby Yoda as one of the things. Although I don't know how it's going to play out because we only got this 40-minute episode, not the whole season.
Right.
So it could have major implications down the road because I don't think that IG-11 was even sent by the same people that sent Boba Fett or sent the Mandalorian.
You think it's somebody else?
I think it was somebody else sent him.
I think it was just the Imperial. I don't think it was. We don't know his name yet, but I think it was just the Imperial and not the Doctor and the Imperial. I think is what's going on. I think the Imperial wants him dead.
I mean, it could be
because he's a huge threat.
It could be, but it was just weird. I don't know. I don't think we needed it, but
it's definitely a big reveal, and it's definitely it's that aha moment, right? But instead of at the end of the series aha moment, it's at the beginning of the series. So now you're like, ooh, oh, okay. So now what? What? That has some really big implications, maybe on not just this series, but the rest of Star Wars going forward. So
yeah,
because you have another same kind of looks like it anyway, same species as Yoda, and if Master Yoda was as strong with the Force as this kid going to be the same way.
Yeah, and it's also it reminds me so how if you're looking at the Muppets, and then you look at Muppet Babies.
Yeah,
that's the exact kind of feature. It turned from Muppets to the Muppet Babies. This was Yoda to Yoda Baby. It was the exact same kind of
yeah.
You can picture him having adventures inside this little room with the horses and everything else.
I think it has really big implications. I think they could take this, and this new Yoda Jr. could actually be part of bringing back the Jedi from extinction. Could have a big play in that, or he's just a one-off and he ends up hiding him away somewhere for a while. I don't know at the end of the series, but we do know that this series does end a week after episode 9 comes out. So I don't know if that timing is intentional or not, especially now that we know what's going, the big reveal.
It was really weird the way they did the schedule anyway.
Yeah,
where we get two the first week, and then every Friday until the week of episode 9 comes out, we get on that Wednesday prior.
Yeah,
and then the Friday after.
Right.
You would have thought that they would have released this a week earlier, so that everything led up to episode 9. So on that Wednesday prior, that was it.
Yeah.
Not that, because you got to think that people are going to go see it on Friday, opening weekend.
Yeah.
And they're going to see it the second weekend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't know why you would put anything related. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Like I said, they could be planting it here. They resolve the Yoda arc in the episode before episode 9 comes out. He shows up in episode 9, and everybody's like, "Who's seen the Mandalorian?" Goes, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, I'm just kind of,
or
I don't know. I'm really mad about the whole fact that they didn't do the binge. They said they were going to.
Yeah, they ended up doing it episodically.
Yeah, I really thought they were going to do the whole binge thing where the whole
everything series.
Yeah, the whole series be ready.
Yeah.
And if they were going to do this way, why didn't they make it longer than 8 episodes?
Yeah.
Or chapters, sorry.
Yeah, 8 chapters.
Why wouldn't they make it longer? Because if you're going to do that, you might as well go the same distance as all the rest of them. Do 15, 20 chapters.
Yeah.
And do a whole story.
Well, I think they were forced. They had to throw something out quick, and the fact that they're already filming season 2 tells me that they've got bigger plans.
Right.
So, we'll see. And if there's a time jump, especially between, say, season 1 and season 2, then with this Yoda Jr., then that might be part of it too. So, all right, well, that is our review. But before we go, if I can get control of my mouse here, Where can you find 4 Midwest Guys? Well, the best place is, if you like this this episode, the best place to go for more is www.4midwestguys.com. Everything is linked there. Our iTunes, our Podbean, our links to our Facebook, Twitter accounts are all there. However, if you do want to find us on Twitter, we are at 4 Midwest Guys. That should not be .com, just 4 Midwest Guys. That's my fault. Mr. Rankenbauer, where can they find you?
You may find me at Inkzone.
And you can find me at bwilly1977. If you like the behind-the-scenes kind of stuff, we do have an Instagram account. We post a lot of weird and awkward fun stuff. Pictures there. That's the number 4_Midwest_guys. And if you just want to send us an email, that's easy enough too, 4midwestguys@gmail.com. But again, the best place to go is the website, www.4midwestguys.com. All right. Well, Brian, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, man.
And I'm B. Willie saying, may the force be with you.
I have spoken.
We've gone from always to I have spoken. I don't know if I like that or not.
I have spoken.
I have spoken. We're done.